Alright, so for this assignment, what we're going to be doing is kinetic text. And so what we have here is we have two different wave forms that you can utilize. And the process for this is that you're going to first listen to the wave file. So I'm using this one in the example.
There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading your technology, and you've not upgraded yourself. You got the same operating system you had since 1995. You don't think any different. You don't speak any different. You're the exact same person you were in 2010. There are those of you.
So that's the part that we're going to add kinetic text to. And so the first step in this is taking this wave file and then typing it all out. Okay, so that's a part of it that I want you to do on your own. Obviously, I have it typed here, which you could pause the video and copy if you wanted. However, it's good practice to get into to be able to do this kind of thing with going back and forth and playing it, typing, playing, typing, playing, typing until you get it right, and then going back and double checking it. Always good to have. Here's my words. Now, we have to get the words obviously into After Effects. Just going to save my composition and make a new one. And we'll get to that one in a minute. Okay, now there's other ways that we can do this, many different ways. One way is that we could go into Illustrator and create exactly what we want that to do. So this is just copied and pasted. Oops, thinking. And then what I've done is I've run a script on this that I found online that takes my typing here. So all I did was grab all of this stuff here and copy and paste it. And then I found a script that would allow me to go through and it would automatically separate all my lines into different layers, which obviously could be helpful for doing that kind of thing. You can lay out all of your stuff inside Illustrator exactly how you want it. If you think of like an infographic, or you think of a word cloud, or you think of how you want this thing to be animated, you can look at a bunch of examples. How you have it laid out could definitely kind of lead to making it a little bit easier to move from one to the other if you want to do it that way. Okay, I'm going to explain it one way in this video, and obviously there are other ways to do it. Ideally, though, in order to kind of break this down into pieces, we have to pull each line as a separate piece. Now, if you're using Illustrator, eventually we want to be able to edit the text. What if there's a typo? We don't want to have to come back into Illustrator, fix it up, and then bring it back in. So a cool thing we can do is once you have your text inside of Illustrator, and I just left it as plain text, you can export it out as a Photoshop PSD. So I'm saving this as a Photoshop PSD. I can call it whatever I want. I called mine type. I'll just call this type 2. We're waiting, and there it is. Okay. Resolution high, not really going to matter too much because we're dealing with text, and it'll just come in like that, but I hit OK, and then we would have it. Then, what we do is we're going to go into After Effects. Now, before we do, I want to show this website called AE Scripts, and on aescripts.com, they have a bunch of scripts and plugins. Now, this is nothing that you need in here, but just some things that, as we've gone throughout the semester, we may have found them to be a little bit easier to use. So one thing would be like a anchor point. Okay, there is an anchor point reposition keyframe here, and you'll see all of these, not all of them. A lot of them will have a price, $9.99, and that might kind of throw you, but a lot of these are name your own price. So you can basically put 0 here, and then add it to the card and download it, and you'll be able to use this specific thing. You can read the license terms and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that'll bring up this little dialog box, which will allow us to really quickly move the anchor point to one of these positions. So that's one that's kind of neat. There's another one called Ease and Whiz. I-Z-Z. Spell words correctly, Sean. So ease and whiz is another one that is a name your own price, add it to the cart. And what this one allows you to do is very quickly just kind of click some buttons in order to change the easing of your keyframes. Okay, so stuff to keep in mind as you're playing with these. There's a whole bunch of other ones inside here too that you may want to explore. Here's some Illustrator path editing tools. Here's After Effects, animation, blah blah blah. So lots of cool stuff you can play with. Now for this one, I've actually installed Ease and Whiz, and I've installed the reposition anchor point. I've also installed this decomposed text that was there, and what that one does is it takes your text file, like if I were to copy and paste this entire thing, it would actually separate each word into a different layer, which obviously could be helpful if we're trying to animate each individual word separately. For this one, I'm trying to keep it so I don't have to do each word. So let's go and import our footage. So I'm going to import my WAV file. So here's my technology WAV file. Okay, and import my type PSD. And it's going to say the same jazz we've seen before. Retain layer size, editable layer styles. Okay, now we get, because in Illustrator, I had this on one layer, which is what you want, one layer. It comes in with one comp, and when I double click that comp, I get one layer, I double click that layer, and then I get all these individual PSD files. Now everything's black because my text is black, so if I just come over here and change this to a different colored font, we'll be able to see nothing. Why wouldn't it show us anything? Why would it be so cruel? Let's close that. Back to this. Oh, forgot one step. So this is text right now. Let me change my composition settings. I can change my background color to something like white. And then we'll be able to see there is all my text. Alright, so now I can't edit it. If I double click it, it just brings it into here and it's treating it as a raster object. You can see my lines, it looks horrible. Don't show this to your parents. Alright, so what I want to do is I have to convert all this jazz to editable text. So if I grab this and say convert to editable text, not editable but editable, I can click that and I'll wait 3 minutes. And then now I can edit the text. So if I go in here and I change my color, you'll see how it's now editing the text. And if I double click on one of these, I could then change one of the words, which is amazing because that's what you want to be able to do. What if you forgot to capitalize something? You see that there's a lot of items inside here that are not perfect that I want to fix at some point. Especially the font. I may not want this font for everything. So in After Effects, on the fly, I can change it without having to bounce around between Illustrator and After Effects. I'm just going to say no to that. Now, the other way we can do this, let me just make a new composition real quick, just so we can see this, is I can grab my text tool, and I can drag a text box. I can grab my first line of text, and then paste it in there. Now, what you're going to see is, there it is. What you're going to see is each one of these lines that I have is kind of how I want these things to come in and be animated. Okay, instead of this being one big paragraph, I thought these are kind of like the bullet points. Okay, there are those of you with phones. That's one part, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of hardware, software, you get it. So I'm trying to isolate these areas where I can emphasize different things. I can kind of pull these things out to kind of emphasize the words "you get it." Okay. Even down here it says you don't think any different, you don't speak any different. Okay. I pulled those out so that I can kind of double back and reuse these any difference multiple times. Okay. So there's one of them, and then if I go to my next line, I can drag this and copy that text and paste it here. and then click off, click again, grab the next line, paste that in there, and then I can start to play with, where these are positioned and all that stuff. Oops, let's scale it down. All right, so just so you can see some of these tools that I'm using, you'll see that there's a little crosshair right here. And after I installed the reposition anchor point, it's available from window, reposition anchor point. And it brings up this window, and then I can just click reposition my anchor point where I want it to be. Okay, really handy tool that you can use. There we go. Over and over and over again. Okay, so very quickly I reposition that anchor point so that it's in that bottom corner. Okay, so then as I move things, as I scale things, it's going to scale from that corner and not from some arbitrary position like this one's going to do, like this center point. Okay, so that really helps out. So let me delete my comp one. I'm going to go to my layer one. Here we go. And here's all my pieces of text. Now, our final composition size, composition settings, is going to be 1280 by 720. And the length of this is going to be just over 20 seconds. So 25 is where we're at right now, which is perfect. 25 seconds, 30 frames a second. Okie dokie. All right, so obviously everything doesn't fit perfectly on here, which is fine. Everything's going to be adjusted anyway. So what I want to do is I want to get some, idea of where these things are at, size-wise, here. Looking at this, these are all going to be moved around, so the fact that they're lined up right along the edge is no big deal, because I'm going to kind of animate this on the fly as I'm going. So I'm going to pick out a good font. And you want something that's easy to read, especially this gentleman talks very quickly, so you don't want something that is very difficult. Make some bold. There are these faux bolds too, but just beware because sometimes they can get a little muddy. There's also all caps, so you may want everything to be all caps, or there's small caps, which could obviously help too. A lot of this you're going to kind of go as you're animating. You may say, I want the and to be bigger, and this to be smaller, and this to be all caps, and this to be no caps, and so on. Okay. So, there we go. So let's start animating this thing. So I'm going to drop in my technology file down here. Here's my file. You'll see that it goes to about 20-ish seconds. And what I want to do is create a some markers on this wave file that tell me where these things are hitting. Okay, so I'm going to listen to it by hitting the period key, and then using my asterisk on the numeric keypad, I can mark in some of these areas. So I'm going to read this, and as it gets to the end of the line, so as he says phones and out, I'm going to hit the asterisk to kind of mark where those points are. And I may not get it right, but it'll get me in the ballpark. So here we go.
That those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading your technology, and you've not upgraded yourself.
All right. So we can do the whole thing. I'm just going to focus on this first part for the lecture. Probably not even the whole first part, just because this does take time to do. So I stopped at you not upgraded yourself. So not upgraded yourself was right there. So all of these ones down here, I'm just going to hit the shy button, this little guy, and then hit this shy button, and that'll hide all those layers. So now they just don't show up. So now it's easier to kind of work on. Okay. I'm also going to shrink my comp size to this, just for now. You wouldn't do that. I'm doing it just so that I can focus in on this area. Now, if I needed to, I could right-click and delete a marker. I can delete all the markers. I can go to the settings for that marker and put some comments in there if I wanted to. Whatever. What we want to do is just make sure those are pretty close. If they're not close, it's not going to be a huge deal. All right, so now what these markers give us is when these things should come in. Now you'll see that this from Illustrator actually came in backwards. Let me unshy this for a second, because as I shied backwards. I shied the wrong ones. This is the start of this. Okay, there are those of you with phones is the bottom, and then the very top is 2010, which in here, if you can see it, is this very bottom layer. So I just need to reorganize these just because of how they came in from Illustrator. So it's very easy to do. I just take my 2010 and drag it down to there. Drag this one down below their AH phones. Okay, now if you type this, that you wouldn't have to do this because yours would hopefully be in the right order already. But it obviously helps to pay attention to these things because as you start to animate, you can get very carried away with just auto mode and not paying attention to what you're actually doing. There we go. Okay, so now let's go back and upgrading yourself. There we go. So now all of this, we'll turn the shy guy on and hit the shy button, and those just hide themselves until we're ready for them. All right, so now my next step in this is we can do this a couple different ways. One way is we can kind of line this up with what we want it to look like. Okay. Ideally, we're going to be bouncing around from point to point. So if you have an idea of how you want this thing to be positioned, then you can start positioning it now. I could scale this. I could scale this up if I wanted to. Let me reposition my anchor point. There we go. I could scale this up if I wanted to, or scale it down, or rotate it, or break this into more lines. I think I want to break this into more lines anyway. So I'm just going to scoot it up. There are those. There are those of you. Phones. Okay. And you'll see how this is going to play out because I'm just kind of going through and laying this out how I want this to be laid out. This other stuff gets in my way, I can always just hide it for the time being. Okay, now I don't want this to just be regular, flat, boring text, just like laid out. I want to have some sort of design sense. So if you think of the stuff you may have learned in typography class of how you would lay out a piece of text, this is where that can come in handy. Make that phone's really big. I'm going to take this, make it a little bit thinner. And I think I'm going to center justify all this. There we go. There are those of you with phones. Because I want phones to be like the major word, because that's what he kind of emphasizes in his speech. I'm going to pull up my leading here. Now a trick is you hold down the control key and you can move in smaller increments. Okay, so let me take the width, pull that down, pull that there. See, there are those of you with phones. Now I can also take the word width and just see, like, what does it look like stretched out? Okay. Another trick is if you hold down the shift key, it goes faster. So it looks like 1,000 is the most I can go here. So maybe I'll put like a space in between each of these. And then I can shrink that back down. And there's something obviously over here that's happening, or maybe I just need a space next to my H. I think that was it. And then I can shrink this in. So there's 2 spaces next to my H. This is where it can get a little tricky trying to line up all this stuff. Now I could also, if I'm still having issues, is I could delete that word out of there and just have it as a separate word. Okay, but I think I should be able to handle this. Okay, there's also a space next to you I want to get rid of. So these spaces at the end can obviously cause you some grief. So I'm just making sure that any extra spaces I would have at the end are gone. There we go. There are. Stretch it out a smidge. And then we can also go to the paragraph and we could scoot these things over. That one doesn't want to scoot. Okay. Oh, because it's center justified, it doesn't want to move. There we go. Alright, so that should be good enough. I'm going to scoot this down a touch. Let's get that down a touch. There we go. Okay. So there are those of you with phones. Okay. So that's going to be my first part of this. Let me isolate these ones. Let me shrink all my stuff in so I can see all my layers. Alright, so now you could do the similar thing, like where do you want to put the word and? I'll move my pivot. I'll put and like that. And then I can put every new phone that comes out. Similar layout as this one. Every new phone that comes out. Delete that extra space. Delete that extra space. This one, watch how I left justify it. And then it allows me to... Oops. No, it's not going to allow me to do that one layer. If I wanted to, I'd have to break it apart. So just center justify it. Maybe I'll take the word phone here and make that bigger. Maybe I'll take this and put it on that line. That way I can really emphasize the word phone again. Put that there. Take every new. Maybe I'll stretch this out. And I want to make sure that my leading is very similar from line to line. There's space after the T here. That's kind of throwing things off. There we go. Okay, so you can see how I can just start to lay this text out. I'm going to hide the rest of this stuff there. Okay, so very quickly, I can have this kind of layout happening inside here. Okay, so we have some stuff kind of set up, and I'm going to focus this on. Let's do the next couple. I'm going to pause the video, do the next couple, and I'll come back. Alright, so now that we have this one, you'll see that I kind of did the every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. And I made these a little bit bigger each time. I've also hidden the other layers just so they're not here, showing up in my com, showing up in my other stuff. Just adjusting my leading. There we go. Okay. Now it's cut off. That is not a big deal because we're going to move all of these things. So what I'm going to do is after I have my layout of how I want this to happen, or a rough idea, I'm going to make a new null. So layer, new, null object. And again, many ways we could do this. I'm just going to call this controller. And I'm going to take all of these and I'm going to parent them to my controller. Sound effect is important. Make sure it's there. So now that that's there, you'll see that as I move my null, I get to move everything, which is obviously extremely helpful. Now, I need these to be 3D layers. I'll make them all 3D layers. There we go. That's good. And the reason we do 3D layers is in case we wanted to do any, sorry, wrong one. In case I want to do any rotation on this in more than one direction, I can do that kind of thing. Okay, now you have to be careful because this is basically controlling everything from this null, so we just have to be, again, careful of how we do that. We could also have done this with a camera instead of a null, but that works too. Alright, so let's get to the fun part. So there are those of you with phones, okay? So we need this to animate on and not just like be there all the time. We want it to just like gradually pop on. We have these markers in here too, so if we know that we have markers and we know that certain words aren't going to be on screen until a certain point, what we can do is just go in here and say, okay, here's where and is. I'm just going to left bracket the word and at this marker, because that's where the word and is going to pop in. So you see there's nothing, and then there's and that should happen pretty close to where he says the word and. Okay, now the same thing here. This marker is for the next words, so I'll just left bracket right there. And then this one here is for the next ones. So I go down to the next one, and I left bracket. Now, it's also a good idea to check this stuff out as you're going. So I hit the space bar.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out.
Okay, phones. And, see, so I'm kind of off there because he said phones, and then he had a big gap between phones and. So I want to scoot the word and over a smidge, and then scoot this one over a smidge, and then scoot this one over a smidge.
With phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it.
And every new phone that comes out. So it's probably over here, actually.
Phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get.
And that's you get it.
New phone that comes out, you get it. Every out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Great, you get it.
So this is going to be the next part, is just kind of like, where does this start, where does this end? Because that'll just help you line things up.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it.
So you see how it looks like it's popping in exactly there, which is exactly what we want to happen. So then we can just keep going.
Every upgrade, you.
So here he says every upgrade. So that'll be over in this area, right? Lined up with this marker. Okay, now you can move it, left bracket, whatever. Left bracket is just a little bit easier. If you could just jump to that, go to your next layer, left bracket, jump to this, go to your next layer, left bracket. Okay, and then you want to test it out. As much as you can, test it out, because it'll just make your life a little bit easier.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it.
Okay, we have to zoom out so you can see those last couple.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are.
Okay, so there's our length of time that we have. Now, we don't want this to just be, again, kind of sitting here. What we want to do is have these things kind of pop on, boop, 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 as we're going. So, under there are phones. There are those of you with phones. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to open up my text, and I'm going to go to my animate, and I'm going to make an opacity animation. Okay, and I'm going to go into my range selector. I'm going to set this to 100 just so you can see what happens. I'm going to take my opacity down to 0. Okay, so right now this is exactly, we see everything. But if I take this offset down, you'll see how these are gradually fading off. Okay, and if I go past 0, it's going to start fading back on. Alright, so I'm going to leave this at 100 for now. I'm going to open up my advanced and turn my smoothness off and turn my based on to words. Okay, so now let's watch the offset again, and you'll see that it just pops in each individual word. Now, because the word with was actually like spaced out in between it, it's going to make it look like each letter is a word. But apart from that, all these other ones will be actual words. Okay, so that allows us to kind of pop things in at the right time. Okay, because we don't want all these here. We want our camera to kind of bounce around, but not be able to see like the edges of these things. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing for every single one of these pieces that's in here, is having this kind of like typewriter effect. Now we don't want to have to do this all again, because just so you can see, I'm going to delete the animator again, and we would have to go through, and I would have to go back to animate for each layer, back to opacity. I would have to take the opacity down to 0, open up my range selector, open up the advanced, set the smoothness to 0, set my characters to words, and then I would have to set some keys on this offset. Okay, just so you can see what it's going to look like, I'm going to click the button here at the start, and then about here is where it ends. So I'll go to 100. And now it's going to go slow because it's kind of like thinking.
comes out. Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out.
Okay. So it's obviously off at the moment. But if you see what's happening with the text is basically like typing itself on there, like, Morse code-ish. All right, so we'd have to do that for every single layer, and obviously that's a pain in the booty, and I don't want to have to do that. So here's a cool thing that we can do is if I grab this animator and I go up to animation, I can save that preset, okay? So after I've set keys and I've set it up and I've kind of tested it and made sure that it works, okay, I'm going to go to save my preset and I'm going to put it in a spot. So right now it's under my folder, blah, 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 blah. You can find a good spot for it. Probably on the P drive or the D drive or your desktop or wherever you're saving your stuff to. So this is going to be typing text. Okay, so it's going to take a second to save because it's going through and saving out any of this information, any of the settings we've done. So just go get a coffee or a tea. There we go, we're done. See, that wasn't so bad. But here's where if I go to my effects and presets and I scroll down to animation presets, there it is, and I go to user presets, you'll see here's the ones that I've already created. So here's typing text. So if we were to rewind this, delete the animator, you see that it's gone, and all I do is just double click. Okay, and now I've double clicked, this disappears, but you'll see that that animation is now part of that specific thing. Okay, so that's pretty neat because it allows us to basically set something up and reuse it over and over and over again, a trillion times if we need to, by just double clicking. Now we get keyframes, so if we needed to change the keyframes, we could just move this wherever. We need it tighter, looser, whatever. All right, so so now that we have this preset, we're going to use that preset like crazy. Now, if you needed to, you could browse presets. Again, we'll wait. Come on, do something. Oh, there it goes. Taking forever. So this should open up Bridge, and then eventually it'll find all my presets and stuff. You can also just drop your presets inside of After Effects, and that works too. So there we go. So that's cool. Let's do fix this up. Okay, so I'm gonna basically set up my work area right here, 1 second to 2 seconds for this first part, and I want to preview it, make sure that as he's saying the words that they're popping onto the screen. Okay, so let's hit the spacebar. I made sure that my preview is set to work area only, and my shortcut is spacebar and frame rate. Perfect. Okay, there are those of you. By the time he's gotten here, he's already said you. So I know that I need to kind of speed up this offset, so I'm just going to pull this up some. And he's actually blending there are into one word. I'm not totally happy with that he's doing that, but I'll let him slide. So I'm just, again, kind of pulling up the offset just to kind of force that to kind of come a little bit sooner. There are those of you. And if I pull this down to like quarter, make sure all my motion blur and stuff is off. With phones.
Those of you with phones.
Okay, now obviously with goes on really slow. Okay, those are those of you with, pull this up, with phones.
Those of you with those of you with phones, and
Okay, now we can pull this last keyframe up a little bit sooner, and then the last part will happen a bit nicer. Now, I can also hit this button, and all of these are just making my text look worse and worse, which is fine because we don't care about what the text looks like now. We're just looking at timing. This could be blob, 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 and that would be sufficient. I'm also going to turn off my composition settings, turn this back to classic 3D, and that may help speed things up too.
those of you with phones, and those of you with phones, and
phones, or those of you with phones.
those of you with phones, and
okay, so you see how the timing kind of matches as he's saying the words are popping up.
those of you with phones, and those of you with phones.
Okay, now I don't like the way that with is typing itself on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to basically here, and I'm going to set a keyframe for this, pull it back a smidge, and then I'm going to go up a bit, and I'm going to pull this up. Okay, so that just forces that to not, because there's not enough room there for it to do it.
those of you with phones, and those of you with phones, and those of you with phones, and
so angry with the word phones. Okay, so now we can scoot this up a smidgy smidge,
and every new those of you with phones, and every new
perfect. Okay, so you see how that matches really good of how we're getting that pop, 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 pop happening. Pop, 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 pop. Now the word and is one word. We don't need to put our typing text preset on there. However, the next phrase, every new phone that comes out. Every new phone that comes out. So we go to every new phone that comes out. I go to typing text, double click it, and now we have an animation. I hit you, and I apologize for hitting you. Wherever I put my cursor and hit U, or wherever I hit my preset, that's where it starts the keyframes. So I just move it. I know that by this point, this next layer down, where this is, that's where my next thing is going to be coming in. So it should be ended by then, so I just kind of pull these up. Okay, now if I needed to, I can pull this whole layer, to adjust it if I see that my stuff is off. So let's pull it back. Let's go here.
those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it.
Oh, look at that. That was almost perfect right without me doing anything.
those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you.
Okay, I think I want to just smidge the whole thing back a hair. Okay, sometimes having it pop in a little bit sooner makes it a little bit easier to see.
Every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every new phone that comes out, you get it.
Yeah, it's looking good, looking good. All right, you get it. Double click my text, hit the U, adjust my keyframes. You get it.
And every new phone that comes out, you get it. Those.
All right, that's looking awesome.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Those of you with phones.
All right, now you're gonna hear this a trillion times, so suck it up and just get used to that. Every upgrade, ba-boom. Hit that, hit you. Zoom out. Scoot this keyframe over. Now it's very tempting to try to jump ahead and do like all these at the same time. Don't do it.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it.
All right, so far so good.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out.
I think every new phone is maybe a little bit soon. Every new phone that comes, or a little bit late. So I'm just going to push this a little bit further that direction.
Every new phone that comes out, you get it.
No, it's good. Okay, sometimes it's literally a frame or two, and that just lines things up perfectly so that our mind and our eyes and our hearing all kind of are in sync. You get it? That's the next one. Click on you get it. Double click on typing text. Click on this, hit U. Scoot our keyframe down. Boop.
Every upgrade, you get it. Every
Ooh, we're zooming on this one. Every piece of software. Let's go to the start of this piece of software, double click typing text, click this, hit U, grab this, scoot it back. Make that a little bigger.
comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it.
Every piece of software could have happened a little sooner. Let's just squeeze that in a little bit tighter.
You get it. Every piece of software, you get it.
All right, and then the last one is you get it. You again, these. And this one, I don't have the other one there, so I'm just going to estimate it. It's about at that point.
Every piece of software, you get it. Every piece.
Make that a little bit longer. It's cutting me off.
You get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are.
All right, so that's all those. I'm just going to hit U just to collapse all that stuff. And now what I want to do is I want to take my controller and actually focus in on each word as I'm going. Okay, so that should be no big deal because by the time I see the word, there are those of you with phones, robotic. I'm going to hit P for position, and that's good. All right, so let's zoom back to where there is on screen, right there. And I'm just going to scoot this one over, and I'm going to scoot this down. And I'm going to scoot it in the Z. And you see as I scoot this in the Z, where'd you go? Oh, it went too far. I scooted too far in the Z. Alright, so negative. There we go. So there. Okay, so here's where we want to be a little bit cautious with this because we want to make sure that our stuff is tight. There. Alright, I'm also going to turn on my title safe. I'm going to be more concerned that it sticks to the outer one than the inner one for now. There we go. Alright, so first keyframe right there. And then when I get to the word R, it's happening about here, okay? So what I'd like to do is I'm, again, focusing on this area. I'm going to scoot this over, and I'm going to scoot it up, and I'm going to scoot it that way. Using this little crosshair as like my center point. And I want to fit there R into this area. There we go. Now, obviously, this keyframe here doesn't happen the exact second that R is there, so it actually is going to look weird. Let me save. So you see it says there, and then R is all the way on the screen, and then those pops on the screen as it's zooming out, and that looks weird. So what I want to do is wait till R is on the screen, like that. Right there. I'm going to move this keyframe over here. So it goes there, R, and I'll wait till those is on the screen, and then I can scoot this up, too far up, those. Okay, preview it. There are those. Okay, now if I don't want this to do that weird transition, it looks like it's like dipping back and coming out, I can grab these keyframes, and that's where I can start to use stuff like ease and whiz. Okay, so I'll just use the default and apply.
Those of you with phones.
It's going to be a little difficult to see right now just because we have only a couple things going on. There are those. So you see I get a much more defined area of animation. Okay, and then of you is right there, so it's perfect. I'm going to set a keyframe here to say I want to stop at that point. And then width is here, so then I'll just scoop this up. With phones. Scoop that up. And again, I'm using those lines to kind of center me. And I haven't picked any colors yet. You'll see everything's just kind of black and white, and I'll pick all those after.
Those of you with phones and every
Okay.
those of you with phones and every new phone that
All right. So let's run that. Oops. Ease and whiz on that thing again. So I've changed some stuff.
those of you with phones and every
All right. Now I may not like this transition here of how slow it's going, and then phones pops in. I may want to hold the width. So I'm just copying and pasting that keyframe. So you see that when phones pops in, it actually like pushes it up.
those of you with phones and every new phone that
Okay.
those of you with phones and every
Okay, now we get to the word and. All right, so then we can just take this and just ignore it for now. I'd shy it, but I have all those stuff shied. I don't want to be pulling stuff in and out. So now and. So let's say I want to emphasize the word and, but I want to see what else is coming.
and every new phone.
Okay, and every new phone. Okay, now I don't want this to be like scrolling text, so you got to be kind of careful with how you do this kind of stuff. So let's pull this back, set a keyframe for the controller, go up to the and, go here, and I can adjust my stuff. I can say, you know what, and doesn't really look like it's centered. I can still nudge it over, and it's not going to affect anything because there's no keyframes on the word and's position, so it's all cool. All right, so let's rewind.
Those of you with phones and every new phone that comes out.
Now we can do something very similar to what we did on top. So I can jump back in and zoom in on every. Okay, so now we go here to every. We go to the position. I scroll it up here. I scoot him right there. I take this up. If I don't want and in there anymore, I'd have to work out some way to kind of push this further up. Maybe I pull every down, whatever. There's different ways that we can get that to happen. Okay, and then we'll scoot this over because we know we have another word right here. We'll zoom back out. Now, same thing as before, we wait for the word new to be in there, and I can scoot this over.
Those of you with phones and every new phone that comes out, you get it.
Okay. So you can see the process of this is just kind of moving that around. There are those of you with phones and every new, and you see how I don't like the word and right there. So there's nothing stopping me from just grabbing every new, like all this stuff here, going to the position and just scooting it down in the Y just to get it out of there. Okay, and then coming back into this. This is where it's supposed to be at every, and then I just move this down until I get back to every. Let's put that over. There. And then when we go to this one, I'm just going to delete that keyframe and then just reset it. Oops, wrong way.
And every new phone that comes out, you get it.
So you see how I got rid of, so it says and then it goes to that.
Every new phone that comes.
Now again, I can copy and paste this just so that I have the word and kind of on screen a little bit longer. Maybe I scoot these two back a snug. That's where every pops in. every new phone. And then we just scoot it up. Mm-hmm. And then same thing, I'm just copying and pasting this keyframe just so it holds this area a little bit longer. And then it pops up when phone's there. So it looks like phone's actually like pushing it up.
There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out. There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out. There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out. There are those of you with phones.
Okay, so you can see the process for doing just this basic transition from one to the other. Every new phone that comes out, you see how everything's kind of framed pretty nice right there. So let's do something different now, okay? So let's do this next you get it. You get it? All right, so this one is obviously it's below this area. It's right here. You get it. So I can take this and do different things with it. So I can take it, make sure the pivot's in the bottom right, go to my scaler, scale it down a touch. And let's see. Let's put it over here. Okay, that way we're not just going up and down, we're going left and right too. Okay, now that does break what we had set up, but that's fine because we're doing different things. We're experimenting with how this could look. All right, so then my controller, I'm just going to scoot the position over here. Okay, now it needs to move over further, so I'm just going to grab this again and scoot it over further, just because I don't want to see all that other stuff on the screen. Okay, now you can see that it's a weird transition. So what I want to do is pull this over sooner. So it comes out. I'm going to copy this, paste it here. Comes out. You get it. Okay, so I can grab these two and pull them down here. So I'm using these keyframes just as a way to kind of line up where my stuff is at. If it comes out, you get it. Okay. And I could even take this you get it and just scoot it up and center it better. There we go. I need this to happen a little bit sooner. All right, there we go. Rewind it and play.
There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it.
Okay, so now here's something else we can do is, you know, we kind of like went off to the left side to do that. You get it. You get it. So I can go like down and do the next one, then come back up and say you get it. You go over the side, you get it, and then come back up and do something else. Okay. So just to kind of show you different methods of how this whole business can happen, I'm just hiding my stuff. Every upgrade is now over here, so I'm just going to scoot it down here. I'm going to grab my controller and scoot this up. Now I can't see every upgrade because I just need more time here. There it is. And then I can just scoot this keyframe over. Recenter myself right about there. All right, so now it says every upgrade is right here. All right, so I want this to again happen pretty quick. So I'm going to copy this keyframe and paste it, pull this one over. This keyframe here is where I want it to be for the every upgrade. This is where it's currently at for you get it. So I'm just moving these to kind of change where that transition happens. Okay, every upgrade actually happens way down here, so let's pull this a bit further. And I think we also want to do this. Let me go to this keyframe here, and we could even just center this like we were doing the other ones. There we go. All right, then we can adjust this again if we needed to. So I can pull this maybe back a little bit more. And I'm assuming upgrade is pretty close to happening, right after that. So we'll take this and scoot it over. No, it's not there yet. There it is. I'll shrink it back down. And this is going to be the most challenging part, is how do you keep it interesting the whole time? Because if you do the same thing every single piece of text, it gets very boring very quick. All right, so I'm just copying this. So every is here, upgrade. All right, save.
Phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. All
right, so now we can go back to the you get it. Here's the easy way to do that, is I just go back to where those keyframes are. When it comes out, you get it. Okay, it's right here. So I can just copy that keyframe, go to here, and paste it, and it'll go back up there. Every upgrade, you get it. Okay, now I don't want the same you get it there. But what I could do is I could redo my typing keyframes on here. So I could redo these, but I think what I want to do is just have a different one because I want to make it bigger. Okay, you get it. All right, so here's what I'll do is I'll just wait till this goes off frame, and I'll just cut it. So now it's cut. Okay, so now when it comes back up, we have this you get it, which I can just slide over here. And it's bigger. That's what we wanted it to be, a little bit bigger. And I'll do the separate lines. I'm going to shrink my leading on this. To center it. I'm going to scale it. Okay, and I'm going to double click my typing text. Oops, actually I already double clicked my typing text. I'm going to hit U so that I can adjust where my typing text happens. There it is. Every upgrade. And then every piece of software. Okay, so that's going to be the next one. So then we'll go to get it. There's every piece of software starting here. So let's go and grab every piece of software. Let's shuffle it off to this side. And then we'll use our controller to scoot up to where that's at. Okay. I may need to go a little bit more forward so I can see it. And again, I may need to break this up so that I can adjust where these things are going out. Maybe we can do something like this. Every piece of software. we go. Every piece of software. Okay. So now you get it's like already gone. Let's copy this. Let's scoot it forward. Let's paste it. And then again, because we're off screen, I'm going to cut my you get it here. I'm going to go back for the last you get it. And it's giving me the same spot. So I'm going to grab this. It's way down here. Pull it up. Let me take my copy, my you get a keyframe right here. Copy that. Paste it there. Copy this one. Paste it there. I'm just holding my keyframes at these certain spots. This keyframe again was one for where this is supposed to be centered. Okay, so I can see all the pieces of software, and then it jumps down to you get it. Okay, now my other you get it is down here. You get it. Now I think on this one I'm going to do something a little bit different, just so I can kind of emphasize you get it again. Is I'm going to take this and make this huge. Not that big. Not that big. That. Okay, so it just says U inside there. Alright, so let's circle back and just verify where we're at. Alright, so over here, every piece of software. And that's where this other you get it should be cut. You get it. Every piece of software. And now it's scooting down just because I have this keyframe just right here. But I want to scoot this all the way down to this side. Now here I can actually keyframe the position of this whole mess. So if I just click on my position, keyframe, scoot up a little bit, put the word get in the middle here, scoot up a little bit, and put the word it in the middle there. All right, I'm not liking the way that's looking just because the T is on there too. So let's delete these keyframes here. And let's change what our stuff is. So I can go into this text, and I can just click on source text, and scoot this back here. So this says you, and then if I change my source text here to get, oops, there we go. And then scoot up a little bit more. Type in IT. And just because it's positioned weird, I'll put it right there. So just put a couple spaces in there just so I can. Okay. So now this one I don't really need this other range selector offset just because of how I've animated this thing. So let me go back and delete the animator completely from it. Alright, so now I can rewind.
With phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading.
Okay.
Get it. You are.
So by that point, he's done with saying his stuff. So I need to scoot these obviously a bit closer. You get it.
Where you get it. You are upgrading. Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading your tech.
All right, so that last you get it is just a bit slow. So I'm just going to zoom in here, scoot in here, hit this, hit you. Just really bring this like a lot closer together.
Every piece of software you get it. You are software you get it.
Now it just says get it. What happened to my U? That's probably right here.
Where you get it.
So I'll go back to here, hit U. I need to scoot this in right about there.
Where you get it. You are upgrading where you get it. You
there we go.
Where you get it.
All right, so that's going to be the process for this entire thing, just kind of figuring out, you know, how you want this stuff to lay and where you want to put it and how you want this thing to flow. Now, obviously, my layers here are kind of like encircling this area, so you may have to work on creative ways to get this stuff to look correct, like cutting off layers. These ones here that are no longer there, there's no point in even having them, right? So once I have that go off screen, I should just cut it down. Same thing with the word and. Doesn't have to be exact, but just, you know, close to where it cuts off. That'll just make your life a lot easier in managing your stuff. Every upgrade, software. There we go.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading your technology.
Okay, so this is the starting point of this. Okay, obviously some things we could add to this is motion blur, motion blur. That will definitely help kind of give us. And just be careful that we can still see it. Okay, let's pause and then wait for us to.
Phones, and upgrade it yourself. There are those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. You are upgrading your technology.
So you can see very quickly we've wait for After Effects to load. We've created this really nice layout. Now, all the stuff that's inside here we could then add on to afterwards. If we decided that we wanted to add some graphics in here, like we wanted the phones to actually be like one of these items to be a phone, we could easily go to where this layer is and swap in that picture and just make sure it's positioned correctly with this, and then it's parented to the null, and then everything would be cool. Okay. All right, now we can go in and start to color stuff. So I can go into these layers and I could pick a different color. And we've talked about color theory before. I'm just going to start off with the base color, you know, because the theory part is great because it gets you understanding where colors come from and why we want to choose certain colors. But at some point, you'll just be picking your own colors. So I'm just going to make a solid for the background. There we go. And obviously it's very difficult to read my blue on this gray. So maybe I want to take this gray and make it darker. If I have a light color here, typically you can go darker. And that light color will pop a little bit more. There it is. You get it? And then another neat thing is adding vignettes. And we've talked about that also. I'm just going to duplicate this layer. I'm going to lighten the layer, and then I'm just going to add an ellipse onto the layer, and then open up the mask, open up the feathering controls, and then I could invert it if I needed to, but I think I like the way that looks. I could expand it, control where my lightness is and where my darkness is. I could also change the color of it, so if I wanted this to be darker, That would, of course, be darker, and then we would get different results. It's subtle on here. I can also change opacity. Okay, lots of different things we can do. The other thing we could also do is add in what's called a generate, where are you? Full color gradient. And a 4-color gradient on this specific item allows us to pick 4 different colors that we want to add to this. So right now it's, you know, these weird colors, but we could pick stuff from the gray region. And then we can control where these colors are at. So I can pull this one really far out. Pull these little stoppers really far out. Maybe I'll darken these a bit. Let me go into the blue area with it. Grab this one, maybe add a little bit of orange. Okay, so we get different effects with this kind of thing. We can also blend it. We can also add some jitter, which is a little bit of noise inside here, which is kind of neat. We can change our blending mode, so we can do a multiply on top of it, or we can do a screen. And so it looks like our background is actually being lit by something and not just like a solid color. And then on top of that, we could add different color corrections too. If you're, you know, you kind of like the way it's set up, but you just want to adjust maybe the hue, maybe the saturation, give it a little more saturation in there. Maybe darken it some. You see how we can adjust these parameters even after we've gone through that whole process. All right, so that's going to be the process for doing this, and you're just going to keep this whole setup for the rest of this. Okay, so you're going to do the entire clip with this same process in mind. You could also change things like the font. So if you were like, you know what, I really like this stuff here, I want this every new phone, I want that to be a completely different font. Here's Cocktail Shaker. Obviously not an appropriate font for this, but you get the idea that we can change the font and give it a little bit more life. Adjust the position of it, and it'll kind of emphasize certain things. I could emphasize just the word phone in here. If I not did that, I grab my text tool and grab the phone. There it is. And then made this one something like impact. You see that the word phone is going to stand out a little bit more, and all of our animation still goes into it. It still works. There are other stuff happening, but phones and every new phone that comes out. So you see how that phone now has more emphasis than the rest of the wording around it. Okay, so there's lots of different ways we can play with this kind of setup. All the stuff we've learned in the past, we can also add to this thing to make it a little bit more impactful. But it's a good starting point for doing some kind of kinetic type text. Okay. Now this other one here, just to show you another way that this whole thing could be set up. Let me cancel that real quick. Here we go. Text layout 1. Again, not paying attention to the coloration, but just the positioning and animation part.
Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it. Every upgrade, you get it. Every piece of software, you get it. Those of you with phones, and every new phone that comes out, you get it.
No, what happened to other you get it? It was there. Comes out. You get it. Oh, whatever. But you get the idea that we can do different things. We can animate these by positioning them in different spots and kind of blending these things together and transitioning these. throughout. Now this one is done with a null. In the past, we've also done stuff with the camera, zooming in and out. That is also an acceptable way to do some of this animation. You could use a null with the other stuff, but it's best to kind of stick with one method instead of trying to do several methods to get it there. Okay, so very cool. Enjoy this one.